Okay, so this is our new Trello board. It is more in line with the Scrum Agile Development Framework. As we go forward, I want to get more and more involved in this process so that we can get better analytics and work together better. Let me tab to the previous one that has that bar on the bottom. It's going to show us where we're at with completing our tasks. So you don't have that right off the bat. Coming back here, this is what you see when you first go to the page. I can go up to this top right button, Scrum, and I can look at the burn down chart, which is a graph showing our progress. This is like the ideal curve. And as we work, there'll be another line that shows our actual. Like if we're not completing tasks quickly, it'll be kind of flat. And as we do them, they'll go down. And there's always the crunch at the end, no matter what we seem to do. So when we go to Scrum, again, we can look at the details that show up in the bottom. 119 story points is too much. And how many we've got left, I believe, or maybe, let's see. So it's estimated 119. How many are remaining and how many are done? Some fancy math could have removed one of those, I think. But as we complete these things, we'll make minor adjustments to the tasks that I'll explain that'll move those numbers along and affect that burn down. And hopefully there's some other analytics. I know you can generate reports and stuff, but some of that might be paid features. Anyway, this is our new board, and I want to go through kind of what's different and how it's the same. And there are some updates for people who were at the meeting yesterday, so it's worth watching, or at least skipping through a little bit to see where we're at. So on the far left, we have the product backlog. It's everything we want to get done. We will update that over time. Like if we're all working together and we see that the multiplayer will be really cool, we can add something over there to implement a multiplayer system. And it's that dynamic where we can take it and make it our own as we go. But the idea is that those are broad goals. You don't see these full labels over there right now because we have an active sprint. These are our user stories. So develop the game environments is a user story, and it's too broad. We should say something like develop the fantasy environment. And right now they're kind of like chapters or tabs, but we'll get more specific as we are able to really refine what we're trying to work on. So user stories are never completed. They're never set to do and doing and done. They are just the categories of work that we're doing, the broad goals. You'll see the color coordinating with the to-do list here, and that is everything that falls within those goals, and not to be confused with the labels, the little smaller colored markers that this purple one might be. See, that's game designer, but this is under developing systems. So there's design work that goes in developing systems. There's audio work that goes in developing systems. So we have these two color schemes. The big labels, or the covers, I'm sorry, are for our user stories and tasks. The small labels are for the small markers are for the labels, which tell you what kind of role is being worked on with getting this done. So the product backlog is the whole thing. The sprint backlog is our current cycle's goals. Then we have to do, doing, and done, which we've been doing the whole time. But everything is in the to-do pile from the start to the end. We can make more as we go, as we find we need them. Like one of mine says something like, build the game design document. And I put 16 points on that, which is huge. I'll talk about the scale in a second, but I shouldn't have made this one be so broad. And so we might, even during the sprint, say, you know what, I'm going to make 5 tasks for that. We're going to work on one of them for the controls, one of them for the enemies, one of them for the environments, one for the hook or whatever, one for marketing. And then each of those will get down to a more realistic story point estimation, which I will show you how to code in these things, because the plugin does analyze the title to give us these metrics. A story point for us will be how many hours we estimate it will take. You will not know. It will not be exactly right. But the more we do these over the course of months or years, as you work with Sprint, you'll get better and better about saying, you know, this is how much I think this amount of work will be. And if I had been paying attention when I wrote that game design document and thought about that, I would say, this isn't a task, this is a user story. So I would have a big cover over there for it, and maybe we'll switch over to that next time. But you'll break it down and analyze it, or maybe say, you know what, I can do these 3 things together, I'll combine those in one task. And so that's kind of the process or the art of writing these things. That's not super important for you to know right off the bat. So looking into one of them, how we get them set up, you have in parentheses on the front the number of hours you think it will take. Other methods will use the t-shirt sizing I showed in the meeting video or presentation, and that would be like For example, we used it in school, the Fibonacci numbers. So it was 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and so on. And so that was like our scale of, instead of 1 to 10, something a little more expressive. But that's a little more abstract, and I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. So how many hours? I think designing this effect could take, maybe 1 to 3 hours, depending on people's experience with it or how far they want to take this. And it's just a guesstimate, right? So you type this in, and it's going to add down to these estimated points here. And then as I'm going through this thing, I'm going to move it. I'm going to assign myself to it, move it into doing, work on it. And when I'm done with it, I would come into this brackets here on the second end. It's got to be parentheses in the front, brackets on the end, and put the time that I spent on it. So I know I switched to this other task, but if I estimated 16 and I spent 12, I'll write that there. And when I move it to done, this will take my estimated off, so 16 off of here. 16 off of remaining. And then SP done will be ticked up, and then that time spent is part of our other metrics. I don't think you see that on this page here, but we can use it for other analytics, and it's super useful for us to look back and say, you know what, we estimated 119 points this sprint, and let's pretend we completed them all, and it took us maybe 80 hours. Then we would say we need to adjust our estimations down as a broad goal, and then you look more specifically at where, like maybe this. Anyway, you get the idea. So that is how you code this thing to react to your tasks. If some of this stuff is overwhelming and we don't get it right, and these numbers don't quite reflect it what we want, well, that's going to happen, and it's accepted and expected, and it's not a problem at all. So it's the first time we're using these things, and it's okay that we don't follow it exactly. We're just going to keep working on that. And there's all kinds of ways that we need to improve as we go. But that is the gist of our new board. And you can see also that we have our sprint 1 tasks here on the complete side. So congratulations, everyone that's got completed tasks in here. You are part of the development team. And even if you don't, it doesn't mean you didn't do stuff for us. It's just that that's what's reflected within the Trello. And it's just super exciting to see so many new faces on there. I really like that. All right, so what I want to do now, I talked about the game design document, how that's not a good task. And it gives me an opportunity to show you how to create one of these. And it's pretty self-explanatory, especially if you've already done some of these tasks with us. But what I'm going to do, and this is totally fine for anyone to do. I know I have this routine and this setup, these processes, but the flexibility is part of it. We don't want to be rigid with what we're doing. The whole thing is called agile development, and so that's what we want to stick with. I'm going to take this game design document task, which is too much. And in fact, let me just take this a step further and say develop design document. Now this is going to be a user story. We will not do a lot of individual creation of this, but there's no reason a person can't. And I'll make this new one have its own color, cover, and when I come over and make a new task, let's see what I have in this. Some of it's useful, I'll leave it for now. Let me actually archive it. I don't want this thing on here anymore. It doesn't actually fit the color either. So I'm going to make a new task. We are going to say develop a design document, and it's going to be player abilities. So let's add that cover first. It's going to be a half cover because this is a task. That whole cover is only for user stories, and it's the default. What I'm going to call this is game design. So I'm going to add that label to it. I will do this as my first task, so as soon as I'm done, I'll join it. In the description, this is another part we didn't talk about yet. I'm going to keep finding these, I'm sure. But we have a way of setting up a description that is uniform and hopefully readable for anyone coming in from the outside. Just like our pull requests in GitHub, we want a stranger to be able to walk up and read this and kind of know what's going on, at least at a broad level. So the form goes as a user or as a blank, because we don't know what this task really relates to. So as a blank, and for me it's user, I would like to, well actually, it's not going to be a user. I'm going to fill it in now. As a player, I would like to have well-defined abilities planned out for my character ahead of time, so that, and so the form goes as a blank, I would like so that. So what we are trying to do is get a familiar format for a person who wants something, and that is the reason that doing it. This business value is something that we're always striving to achieve. We want to give them what they want so that they will go for our product. And there's a lot of different ways to achieve this, but if we are not delivering something someone wants, then there's not a reason for us to be making it. And I mean, of course, that's not true on like a personal level, but for this to be something responsible, and if you're in the industry, they are doing this in a financially responsible way, and this is how you achieve that business value. One of the ways. So as a player, I would like to have well-defined abilities planned out for my character ahead of time so that I can be confident that the design is enjoyable and makes sense. It doesn't have to be super stupendously interesting or profound, but this is our description, and it doesn't have to be the only thing you say. So let's say I want to make notes here about more specifics of the task. There's no reason you can't do something like that. So I like to make a checklist. I think I don't have one for notes right now. So if I make a notes checklist, here are, so I say more specifics here are probably better in the description. And I might get more explicit about what should go where as we go. But man, one more thing that I forgot to share in the other sessions that is super important here is the way to start one of these things, which I have changed and simplified to just this button here, begin task. I mentioned I was going to join this card, but this this script is going to take care of that and some other housekeeping stuff for us. So I've got my task here. I've refined my previous idea for the game design document task that is now a user story. I'll build out some of these tasks today as part of my homework, and I'm ready to get this one started. I'm going to just go ahead and say begin task. So it is doing its thing. It's not super performant, but you can see that it is in the list doing. I have been added to the card. I have some new checklists here, the steps checklist, and some little helper text here to say what we're going to do. I'm going to create a plan for it here. Maybe I will brainstorm some favorite platformers for research. Some favorite platformers for ability ideas. Okay. And then brainstorming session, 15 minutes to get raw ideas. And then refine ideas, hour, and fill out design document. So what I've got is a rough idea of the steps, which will change over time. I'll check off as I go. And then my completion checks is just a simple check that should not be changed. We want to make sure yes or no I completed it for whatever reason. You know, to be giving feedback on this. It's just for you to see. Do I need a follow-up task? For me, yes. I need to make sure that I create other work to filling out this game design document, because I now just have a single piece of my broader goal that isn't going to be reflected on this. Another reason I might do another task is if it was too big. So I was like, I can't come up with all the abilities for all the different worlds in this moment, so I can come up with what I know based on what I've seen in the game. My follow-up task is to research more abilities that fit different worlds, maybe. Sharing the task completion with the team. This is going to be done automatically on GitHub. It's automatic as you move from doing to done, but it's not going to be very visible. I'm sure some of y'all have seen that I've had hundreds of changes to Trello over the last couple of days because of all these labels and lists and scripts and stuff. So say something in the appropriate channel that you have completed a task that's relevant to people who are there and doing work in that channel. And it's kind of a dual purpose of keeping people on top of things outside of our meetings and also showing off your work, getting people inspired and engaged in the process. The last thing is just check this box. As soon as all of these are checked, it will automatically move from doing, where you can find it at the bottom. These new ones get added to the bottom. When I finish off that last checkbox, it will automatically move to done. So that is the process from start to finish, with a little extra because we're not going to be usually making new user stories. That's part of the planning that we did not get to last time because it's a lot of process explanation. But you can see we create the task on the left. We follow that form. I didn't follow it completely. Let me go back and do one more thing. I wanted to make some player abilities, and I'm going to estimate this. So time estimated. You don't have to type this out. I'm just going to have it here so you can see what I'm doing. And that's in parentheses, and then brackets, time spent. It will not read this if you don't do parentheses and then brackets. So this estimation happens during planning, but on the fly, you'll of course have to do it again as well. And I gave myself an hour to refine it. I'm filling it out and doing some brainstorming research. I'm going to call this 3 hours. That research might be half an hour to an hour. Filling it out can be like 30 minutes and another hour. So I'm estimating at 3. Remember, we had 119 points. I then removed that last task that was 16 and added this one. You can see now at a glance, we have it up here. I can pull it down below. We now have 106 points. So it was down to 100, which isn't quite adding up to me now that I think about it. Let's see if I have another one. Level 119. Take off 6. Okay. 119 minus 16. I had 103 and added this one, so I'm back up to 106 estimated points. And as I complete that, that will get taken off as well. So one more time quickly, I will not go through all the steps, but if I add my card, I'll just pretend I just made this one. I am going to take this task where I just made it, and I'm going to hit begin task. I'll add all of those lists and move it to doing. I then need to estimate it. And so the parentheses with the time estimated, when I'm done, I'm going to check off all those boxes after I put in the time spent. And that will automatically move it to the done category. And all of the metrics and accounting stuff is going to be done automatically in the end. So we'll keep reviewing this. Again, this is the first week. We're trying it out. In our class, this was assignments. This was weeks. This was multiple classes that you learn this stuff. So give yourself time and do as much of it as you can comfortably do while pushing yourself to get more and more skilled at completing these things.